Thanks for coming to listen today. We're here to talk about building a top 1% workplace. My name's Toby Babb. I run a company called Harrington Starr. And part of that is to also put together a magazine called The Financial Technologist, where every year we look and celebrate the best companies within financial technology to work for from a workplace and culture perspective. Today, I am joined by three people who've been in those awards, both from judging and winning and competing bases, and they know a thing or two about creating and building great workplaces. So I'm going to introduce you, allow them to introduce themselves to you, then we're going to go into it and try and get a blueprint for what a great workplace looks for in the fintech space. So let's go to the far end first. Joachim, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Toby. My name is Joachim, CEO of Valantic FSA. Valantic, very briefly, 4,000 people, IT services and consultancy. Valantic FSA being a fintech, we provide automation technology to the financial industry. If that is.
That's perfectly satisfactory. Very good. Claire?
Hi, I'm Clare Jones. I'm the Chief People Officer at GSS. We are about 85 strong in size, so much, much different to you. And I've been part of the GSS journey about 3 years to build the business to that size.
And Lili?
So my name is Lili. I'm the People Business Partner working at Calastone Limited. In between, I think, the two. So our headcount is 250. Calastone Limited is the largest global fund network, and across the world, most of the financial organizations will use us for their connectivity.
Perfect. So look, we've got a wonderful blend here of businesses who are at various different sizes and scale of evolution within it. All of them I know are great places to work and have won great recognition for that at various different phases. We've got lots to talk about. We've had a little of a prep call beforehand and spoken about this topic. It's something we're all very passionate about. And so we've got lots to talk about over the next 45 minutes or so. So let's kick off a little with the concept that this is an engineer's market. It's still, despite whatever headwinds are economically, it's still difficult to attract and engage the best engineers in the marketplace. So let's start off with a big question. To attract and engage the best talent into your business, what are some of the things that people can be thinking about to be doing? Let's go from the end and work our way down. Joachim, you can go again.
So we returned the ladies first principle. Okay. I mean, first of all, I think it's not only about engineers. Yeah, I mean, a company only works if you are strong in every link of the chain. Yeah, so that's number one. Number two, I believe there are different species. Engineers are different to DevOps, are different to sales, are different to admin people. Yeah, so you have to find, I think, a way of attracting all of them. Yeah, and then I believe these days it is, as you said, a very fierce competition everywhere around all these positions. I think it is not only the question of how do you attract them, but how do you retain them. I think that is probably equally, if not even more important, because it costs you much more to lose a good person and to replace than not filling a position. Yeah. So I could go on long and long, but I think we come back to those questions.
Claire,
Do you want me to jump in? I totally agree with everything that you said there, and I think in terms of attracting, you've got to make your recruitment process really, really tight. So, gone are the days of taking a month to run a recruitment process. You need to keep it slick. You need to keep it moving. You've got to think about it from the candidate perspective, and because they'll lose interest and it's their market, they can go elsewhere if we don't move fast enough. So that's something that we've really tried to focus on this year in terms of our speed and actually how we engage with people, how we speak to people, and how we present ourselves, and things like our job specs. How do we put ourselves out there in the best light? And it's not a shopping list of all the different things, but what attracts them, what hooks them in, that they're interested in, and things like that. And in terms of retention, it's key, and there's no one size fits all. There's no one big thing that you do, but it's all about communication for me. It's all about how we engage, how we keep talking to our people, keep them interested, give them exciting and interesting work to do, that they feel that they're learning.
I think that process is such an important part of it, just to jump in there as well. I was speaking to someone earlier on today about the whole concept of how there's not a lot of strategy sometimes to how people run a recruitment process, and it's like, right, we need someone, so let's go out there and find it, and not think about it, or take ages and ages to go back to something where they weren't before and then find out they've lost the person. I think people at the heart of every single business's success within FinTech, and when you put that thought behind it, it needs to have the same sort of contemplation about how we actually make something at the same time. Lili, talk to us a little about what you're doing at Calastone.
And just adding to what you said, retention. So talent attracts talent. And then you can actually make sure that you're treating the people that you hire as adults, because they are adults outside workspace. So absolutely give them the same feeling in work. Be honest with them. Be open with them. Share everything that's happening in the business with them. And in addition to that, make sure that you have the specific policies related to your people. Listen to them. Give them voices. Hybrid. There's a combination of different things that we will cover. But I absolutely agree. Talent attracts talent, and from day one, during the recruitment process, if you can be honest with them, upfront with them, bring the talent in front of them, then recruitment becomes easy as far as we are concerned.
Talent and attracting talent is a key part of this, and I think if we're looking at building a great workplace, it's about making sure that there are magnets for that talent, and you're looking left and right and seeing great people around you. One of the other themes that came through from the interviews we did and the articles in the magazine is about the importance of leadership. Joachim, you were noted as one of the most influential leaders in the space within the magazine, so well done on that first and foremost. And maybe a good point to start about what does great leadership look like in a company at the moment, particularly, and this changes all the time. As we go into 2025, I think it's going to be very different to what it was like in the challenges of 20 and 21. The market changed in 22 and 23, 24 and 25 will be different again. What does a great leadership look like to you?
I mean, this is a big topic.
It's a book on itself, isn't it?
It is. And I guess there are a couple of challenges here. Number one, I think it's true that people join companies and leave their managers, when they leave. And just because you promote your best individual contributors to become a manager, they are not by definition becoming a great manager. Actually, and often it is the opposite. So you have to invest a lot in really making sure that the people you promote and your managers are becoming real leaders, not only managers. Things have, as you said, changed dramatically through the pandemic, through the hybrid workplace, managing remote and distributed workforces. Making sure that you still give meaning to them, they are still feeling part of something, that they are still being promoted, coached, developed, and at the same time feel being part of a broader team, and still you get the job done and you make money, because from my perspective, we talk a lot about people, but at the end of the day we all have to make money, otherwise we won't be able to pay our people, and then it's worth nothing. So from my perspective, you always have to get the balance right. But I think for me the crucial topic is the topic of leadership. And you have to invest so much in making your managers good leaders. And I will not go on what great leaders will all be, because it's as you said, it's a long topic. But one thing, you mentioned it's treating people like adults, being open, authentic, and communicate well. So what I observe again and again is that managers have difficulties in being really open, being authentic. If there are great news, they're easy to share. If there are less great news, and we all have sometimes less great news, business isn't going as well, products are not being shipped as well, clients are leaving or whatever you have, and it has an impact on your organization. You still have to treat your people like adults. Share those effects. Be true to them. Don't give them the impression that you only share the positives but never the negatives, and people don't like to be surprised. And as long as they trust you as their leader, as long as they feel you look after them, as long as you feel you care, then I think you have a great chance of retaining your talent and attracting talent. And it's not only about treating them as human beings and having a cozy, nice, warm workplace, with all the amenities that you would love to have as an employee. It's about treating them as a human being, being honest, even if it's a negative or a difficult to swallow fact. Share it with them. Treat them as them being part of the whole story and journey, and not just a mass of people that has to follow whatever you direct. But I think overall, I don't see companies invest in that enough. I see companies, especially when they're growing, promoting the best individual contributors. Sometimes then they lose the best individual contributor and they win an awkward manager and a non-existing leader. And then is when the whole thing breaks down and you can attract as many good people as you like. If then this part of the value chain breaks down, you're dead.
A lot of nodding going on from you there, Claire.
Yeah, I can relate a lot to all of that. I think it's leadership at all levels, isn't it? That as you say, it cascades all the way down the business. And for me, one of the big things has to be about we're steering the ship in the same direction, we're all pulling in the same direction. So it's having clear focus and prioritization and guidance of, okay, what are we all working towards, and cascading your goals and your objectives down so everyone's working towards the same purpose. You've all got different jobs to do, but you're all pulling together in the same direction, and without that, you're kind of rudderless. And so you need to have that common, clear focus to keep moving forward, and I think that's got to be a key part of it, and it keeps coming back. We've said it before, but communication and the ongoing day-to-day communication, so that people aren't just sat there in silence and thinking what's going on, what's happening, and they're getting nervous. Let's be open, let's be honest, let's show some vulnerability a little bit, and be true to ourselves in that as well. And it comes, things like fairness. It's so obvious, but if you're going to have true leadership, be fair, be transparent in the processes and the decisions that you're making, that you don't have your favourites, that always get the best pick of whatever happens or whatever. So it's having that complete transparency across it.
Yeah, that communication and fairness are definite themes that we've been hearing about. Lili, you've been through a business that's gone through some fairly hyper growth over the years, got some great accolades, and I know that leadership team's been fairly revered over at Calastone as well. Tell us a little bit about what's right there.
On top of everything that's already been covered, and most of the things have been covered, the only thing that I would add from the leadership point of view is that don't be risk averse. So yes, every business has to make money, especially like us, we're now backed by private equity. You have to make money, but at the same time, when you're hiring the top talent, they want to feel as if they're making a difference. So be prepared to have that budget or bonus for you to kind of take risk, let people be creative, and let them build on that. They need to feel that they're doing something. Yes, they're doing the BAU, but they're also part of a new change, a new journey.
It's been touched on a little bit from what we've spoken about so far, where people are over-promoted. Particularly in growth companies, people are over-promoted. You lose, and I think that's a really important part of it. You lose your best performer, and you've also then got a weak manager, and it poisons the rest of things afterwards. So I think this another ingredient of a great workplace is investment in training and development. And the best companies that I've ever seen, the best companies I've worked with, the best companies I've observed, and the ones who've gone through hypergrowth, absolutely focus on that side of things as well. So what does great training and development look like in a great workplace? We'll work down it. We've got a theme now going, haven't we?
So I guess there's a difference. So for example, in Valantic, we acquired mature businesses and turned them into one new company, meaning we have legacy technology as well as where we are developing new stuff. So when you're a startup and when you're in AI, it's probably easier to attract great talent because you can always talk about the fancy new stuff. In reality, not everything is fancy that you do during the day. Yeah. So when you sell your company in a process, onboarding process, hiring process, you can paint colorful pictures, but sometimes reality is a bit more less colorful. But you still have to carve out time, even if daily work, BAU as you called it, is not as colorful and it's not always the hippest, latest kind of tech. You have to make sure you carve out time. That's how we do it. Carve out time for each individual to continue to micro-develop. Yeah? And what we do is we engage our people and we encourage them to do micro-certifications in new technology. Stay on top. And then what we have is a system that people can basically propose to develop new stuff that is related to our business, and we review those proposals, then we pick one, we fund it, and we let them do something. So we engage our people by encouraging them to come up with new ideas about new stuff that has to be related to what we do, of course, and then find time to carve out, which in itself is not easy because you don't have people sitting around waiting to do something. Everybody's always super busy in shipping technology or implementing a project, but you really have to be disciplined in finding that time, giving them time. And even though your technology probably it's not always in itself a development of skills, you have to find time to have your team develop micro skills in new stuff, things that they are interested in around what you do as a company. And I think as long as the people have the feeling that there is time and there is effort and there is support, I think you will see that they will really appreciate.
It comes into that listening piece again, and communication is not just taught how you give news, it's about how you take information through. And I think allowing people to understand, what that sort of where they want to develop and where they want to go is a really important part of that as well.
Getting back to the point of leadership and listening and knowing your people.
Yeah, absolutely. Claire?
So we've done quite a few things this year. As I say, our business has really scaled in terms of headcount size this year. We've really doubled in our headcount this year. So it's been a big focus then of it's part of the retention piece. How do we train and develop and engage our people? And so a couple of things, and recognising we are much smaller, so we don't have the budgets necessarily an organisation of your size may have. So we've tried to do a few things, like we've called it the enablement programme, for example, where people from different teams come together on a Friday afternoon and we spend an hour and we learn about each other's experiences and knowledge and sharing, and we have a portal now where we can save lots of information and details too. So it's about trying to build all of our knowledge up to a certain level as well. And that's we're talking about industry knowledge as well as technical knowledge as well across teams. And that's gone down really well of just something that's trying to, without having to go on big courses and spend a lot of money, we've been trying to do that and use the experience and use the skills we've got internally. But we've also we've launched with Udemy Business this year as well as as the big piece for us, to try and have pathways and the accreditations, as you were saying, and building that so people have access to things like that. And we're starting to map it out now of having career frameworks for people and to be able to have pathways on Udemy to be able to say, well, if you're in software engineering, here's a path that might follow to help you and support you. So we're trying to build more bespoke to different teams that they can go off and learn different things that they're interested in and they want to know, but there's also a bit of a curated list for them as well.
It's so important towards retention on that as well, isn't it? So people feel they can move and get access to it, which is the predominant part around software engineering in particular, is people want to have access to new areas and new skills.
And if I may just quickly add one thing, what we have done also is you would be surprised how many free of charge courses are out there on LinkedIn Learning or others, from MIT and others, like really high value. And we encourage our people to do this in their free time. I mean, the funny bit is you would expect your doctor, your lawyer to sit down and read the latest and greatest of medicine or law. Not during the work time. They probably do it outside the work time. So we're trying to encourage our people to apply the same thinking and not expect us to free time to do that in the work time, but for them to contribute something and do that in their free time. But we provide the access to it and the know-how about how to get on it.
Lili.
So as a company, we do tend to concentrate a lot on training because our mission is to cause disruption in the fund industry, and we can't do that if we are not on top of the technology. So I'll answer this twofold. As I said, we have a lot of, we're partnering with Microsoft, so we have access to a lot of courses that we can offer to our people. But making sure that you're giving your people the time, because sometimes you have lots of these things, lots of processes in place, but then people are so busy delivering their projects that you don't make time. So we've now, on a granular level, we've added training as a part of the sprint, so people can make time so that they can build on themselves. So that's part one. Second, again, as a startup company now, medium size, we've got this fungible model where we push people from within to step up, and we've got great cases within the company which wouldn't have happened if we hadn't invested as much in our L&D. So we've got a graduate who's now working as a managing director, managing 30 people in 3 teams. We've had cases, lots of cases, where a lot of mentoring and coaching goes into our people. But we've got someone who started in operations, then internally they wanted to be executive assistant to the CEO, and now they're sitting in marketing team. So we let that journey happen, but that can only happen if we allow people to take time and do the learning, develop themselves, Lots of money is spent. I mean, the total budget is divided into two parts. One is I can tell my manager what I would like to do in terms of training to develop myself. And the second is the manager identifies the industry standards and certifications that you would need to do your current job well. So it's a combination of both the things. But yeah, making sure your people have time. Because you can line up lots of training courses, but if you don't give them time.
And actually them wanting to have that time as well. Quite often it's like, I want to do my day job, I want to be immersed in that, but you're taking me off desk to do that sort of thing. You can kill people with kindness sometimes when they don't necessarily want that as well.
And I don't know how it is here in the audience, but I mean, there's a huge difference with younger companies and more mature companies. I've just been to the Christmas party in one of our locations, and I gave basically certificates to 10, 15, 20, and 25 years with the company that we acquired. Wow. So a person that has been in the company for 25 years doing the same kind of job in the same area is a different person than a graduate that you come and that is still super hungry. And getting that right, and integrating the ambidexterity of the more mature, more experienced people with the young people, and understanding what they want and what they need, and also encouraging the more mature members of staff, to be as hungry as the youngest, it's not always an easy case.
It's a generational piece, isn't it, of understanding the cross-generational in the business, and they all want different things.
And not having for training's sake. I think that's always a blanket thing of saying, right, we're going to do this to show that we train and develop people. It's got to be tailored and unique to, as you say, the various different levels or generations, or whatever it might be within them, and skill sets. I don't think a conversation over the last few years about workplace culture and building workplaces is right, unless you're talking about the H word, so the hybrid, and getting that sort of things right. You know, we had remote was going to be remote forever. Then it was going to be hybrid, and this is going to be so much better. And now we're seeing so many, particularly that in the financial services spaces and just down the road at Canary Wharf, mandating everyone to come back in 5 days a week. Not always to everyone's taste, not always possible for everyone. It creates those sort of things. I think leaders love to have everyone together where they can do that sort of thing. They're learning to have different things. We come back to creating great leadership. The great leadership is understanding how managing people in a room is different from managing people remotely and still getting around people. It creates challenges, and people are still struggling with this now 4 or 5 years on from where it became supposedly mainstream. Tell us a little bit about how we can get that hybrid piece right.
Yeah, again, a big challenge, and in our case, with so many people distributed across so many locations, not easy at all. But what happened? You had your company with the setup. You had the leaders you had. They worked in the environment they worked in before, and some of them were great, some of them were less great, but it was what it was. And then all of a sudden the pandemic came in, and this whole new challenge came in. Now, nobody was prepared for that. And then, you were trying to survive, the chaos, the first year and the second year. And then things kind of came in, and then you were trying to find your way through, and then you gave in the first place, you didn't give hard rules. You said, probably you should try to be here 2 days a week, and then some did, some didn't, and then you were trying to find how do you treat everybody alike, and then in some cases you found that it worked well, in others the same model didn't work well, So getting it right, it was super difficult. I'm not claiming that we got it right, and we are still it's trying to find our way.
Anyone who claims they've got it right is lying, for
really
sure.
Probably that is the case, and we are still learning every day. And in Germany we have the Works Council as an additional layer, with their rights, to determine or to oppose what you are trying to do. And what we've learned is, number one, just calling people back in isn't working, especially not if 2/3 of your team are engineers. It isn't working. Number two, not all your leaders or managers were able to actually manage it. Number three, you could argue those who are quiet are those who get on well with it. Those that are sitting in their home office and do not shout out, do not complain, they just do their work. Matter of fact is, we learned that sometimes those that are most quiet are those that you are going to lose, with psychological problems, mental health issues. Yeah, they're actually getting isolated at home. So finding that out, who that is, having managers who are capable of getting close to them, being like true coaches, yeah, and finding out what each individual needs, and then building a system for them of hybrid work that actually works for this particular thing is a constant challenge, and there is not one size fits all. That is a matter of fact. Yeah, our finance people are all in all the time yeah, because that's how they work. Yeah, our marketing people are not. Our engineers are not. Yeah. So we are still fighting every day to get it right, and when we are making changes to it depending on how each individual pocket of the company works. And there is not one general truth, to be honest.
I think the key to what you said there is there isn't one size that fits all, and that flexibility seems to be winning out on it.
Yeah.
Now, are you seeing similar sort of things?
Absolutely, and I think it's really hard, and it's really hard for all of us, and none of us, I don't think, have got it quite right. And you have seen organisations that have gone to the right, we want you in X amount of days a week or percentage a month or whatever it may be. We've got to come back to the retention of our employees and what do our employees want as well. And yes, what do we need as an organisation and how do we need to operate? But if our employee base, who we really value, and it's a really hard market to recruit and retain, they don't want to be in 5 days, 4 days, whatever it may be a week, then we're not helping ourselves in that case either. So I think it's about finding hooks and reasons to encourage people to come in for certain activities, whether that's team building events, whether it's we're trying to do, different teams might come in on different days of the week, so that they've got time focus where they're going to do something, and they've got a reason to come in, if you like. We've also probably made it a bit harder for ourselves, I think, this year, because as part of our growth, as well as having hybrid, we've also gone remote UK for some roles, where some roles have been harder to recruit and harder to find. So we've got people living up in Scotland, over in Wales, in Ireland, whatever, and so we've got some people on hybrid, some people on remote contracts, and that also adds a different complexity to it as well. And it keeps coming back to communication. How do we know our teams? How do we keep talking to our teams? How do we know what people want to do, what we need to do? And those honest conversations. But it's tough, and we just have to keep going.
Lili?
Yeah, just to add to that, and absolutely agree with all the points already raised. And we were the same when the COVID just settled. We thought, okay, tell people, mandate them to come to work, and suddenly we had few resignations, and we were like, we're very good at putting our hands up as a business, and that comes to the leadership and saying, absolutely, we messed up, fix it. And that's what we did. So articulating the focus, what you're trying to achieve with hybrid working is very important. Whether it is productivity, whether it is employee engagement or talent in workplace, and having access to that. So making sure you have that. No mandate, guardrails. Just explain to people what you're trying to achieve. But at the same time, as it was previously mentioned, that for every role you have to be more flexible. Our sales and finance team like to come in every day, but with the engineer. So be flexible. Every team, every role, every organization will have its own flexibility model. One size absolutely doesn't fit all. And be prepared to put your hands up and say, it's not working, let's look for a solution. Ask your employees. I mean, we do pulse surveys and ask people what they would like to do. From something as simple as, do you want to wear a mask during the COVID days, to now, like what is more comfortable for them? We let our people tell us and work around that.
May I add one thing, Toby? I have to admit, in the beginning I thought, okay, so all my staff signed once a contract to be in the office 5 days a week.
Sorry.
And now all of a sudden this seems to be a huge issue. So I've come to accept that you have to become a little bit, like you mentioned it, of an event manager to pull them back in. And in the beginning I thought, so now I really have to stretch myself in the organization to be an event manager and create all these great events for people to come in. I've come to accept this is the case. Yeah. So what we are really doing, like you mentioned it, we have monthly breakfast meetings. So everybody that has a birthday meeting, everybody that has a birthday in that month, yeah, we invite. We do pizza days, we do waffle days, yeah, we cook together. We invite interesting speakers, yeah, to talk about our industry and basically create events all the time for people to have a reason to come in. At least we have them in at that day, and everyone which again is an interesting challenge because after the pandemic we reduced our office space to 60% capacity, and now if everybody's coming, we don't have enough space. The funny bit is not everybody is coming. The truth is I never have more than 50% of staff in the office. That is also a fact, yeah. But I've come to accept that you have to go the extra mile now to put people in, although they once signed a contract to be in the office for 5 days.
We have to work differently to get the best out of them. I think that's the key thing.
And I think the listening is the key part of this, and communication I think has been. So we've run the top 1% workplace awards now for 8-9 years, and you see an evolution over that time of what it looks like, what a great workplace looks like, and there's meta themes each time. So, yeah, if I'm thinking back to pre-2018, 2019, it was all about the gimmicks and how you keep people entertained and almost make it like a fun place to be. In COVID, it was all about the over communication and spending time with people. It moved back to other little bits and pieces over the last couple of years. This year, the shrieking voice that came out to me was about communication and involving the team. And I think traditionally in business, it's been about, well, we can't have that, the tail's wagging the dog. Now it's very much about listening and improving and saying, right, well, how can we move our people to get the best out of them and put them in that situation? And communication is a theme that each of you spoke about when we've been talking about this before. So let's move back down this way now. And Lili, I'm going to start with you, just to mix things up a little bit. I know you guys have spent a lot of time involving people in values and involving them in the conversation and doing that. Tell us some of the things that you've learned from your time working with the business on what, we've spoken about communication. What does real world-class communication look like when you're engaging with that team to you?
So, like flexibility, I think we're still trying to figure out what's the best communication process for us. Because from being a company where, with 3 people to now 250, it has been hard. And it's just making sure that you're constantly trying something or the other. And you're working around it. Like earlier, it was very much about how we make sure that all the goals and strategic goals and everything, the communication is top down, bottom up, happening properly. And then COVID hit us. So then you had to think of the newer ways of how communication happens with people who are in the office, outside the office. We're still working on it, but what we've discovered is that the engagement survey is the way to go, and then having regular focus groups and pulse surveys, and having things like suggestion box, which is anonymous, where people can submit their communication, or holding leadership clinics where the leaders are sitting in the board, and you can just pencil in for 10 minutes and go and speak to anybody and everybody. Our leaders are generally out and about. We don't have a glass bowl kind of office setup, but just you constantly have to continue working towards what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You start a new initiative, you see the uptake. If it doesn't work, you park that, you go for something else. So just being creative. That
iterative piece about being able to try and fail and then move and adjust and improve, I think is a really important part to it. Okay. I think you see it in software development. A lot of it talks about iterative design and iterative building, and you don't necessarily see it in the culture of what you do. I love what you're talking about there. I know there's a lot that's been worked on here as well. This is a pet subject, right? So
it is, yeah. So there's a couple of things. When we set our values, we did a big process of working with the business to actually, what do we stand for? How do we work? What do we do well together? How do we get the best out of each other? Where are we not so strong? And we used that with lots of different focus groups to kind of come up with our overarching organisational values. And so it has more meaning. It has more powerful impact, I suppose, of it coming from the business. It's not just the leaders coming up with saying, well, these are our 3 values. This is what we stand for. This is, it has been an iterative process, but involving input from across the business, that people are saying, okay, this is how I want to work with each other. This is how I want us to communicate with each other. So I'm a big believer in that, and bringing people into those conversations and hearing their views and how do we best use them. We did things like you were saying, Lili, with focus groups. We did a working group earlier in the summer where we're looking at how do we best collaborate together, and communication is a key part of it. So, going back to hybrid, let's all try and have our cameras on. It's a basic thing, but how do we get a pulse of knowing reactions of what's happening in the room if everyone's got their camera switched off? So it's some small things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But it's just trying to make it more human, really, at the end of the day.
And finally?
Yeah, I like actually to go last, though I can think about my answer for a bit longer.
I want to mix it up from now on.
No, there are three things actually that I think are important. One is authenticity. I think far too often I've observed that especially the leadership team or the executive team talk about stuff and then reality in the teams feels completely different. Yeah, so be authentic. Don't try to portray stories that everybody knows is actually not the case. It's wishful thinking. It's probably a vision, but actually reality is different. So you're going to lose your team immediately if there is too much of a gap. Yeah, number one. Number two is consistency. Do not only communicate randomly, but consistency, so people know that you are taking them on the journey and they can rely on you conveying the messages. And then the third biggest piece is, I think, you could call it purpose, yeah? But not purpose in the sense of like, matter of fact is what we do as a product. It's not going to save the world, it's not going to help climate change, and it's probably not promoting diversity either. But matter of fact is what we do is helping our clients to be super successful, and it's making a substantial change for our clients to survive. So you could argue that I'm just a coder and code a little bit of application code or backend code, or you can create the understanding of how what they do is actually contributing to a bigger picture that eventually has a purpose for our clients to love us for what we do and for what they do. So there is a value, everybody understands the value. And I think this consistent communication is important, but then one thing I've also learned is, and in the beginning of my career, when I communicated to my teams, I realized that I was using far too many abbreviations or exec talk, yeah? And I realized that some people don't even know what EBITDA is, yeah? Or they don't really understand the concept. So you communicate all that stuff and you think you've been very transparent, yeah, sharing all those numbers, but people can't make sense of it. So you have to tune your storytelling towards your target audience. So you really have to be precise in the language to make sure they understand what you are trying to say, because otherwise it's just one other boring town hall that people go to and then leave again.
I think there's a lot of important things that are said there, particularly the concept of storytelling, which I don't think is used enough to recognise that this is you are telling a story, and the value piece is any book you read about performance will usually have something there about purpose, and there's a lot of work from sports to business, etc., military to business, and people struggle sometimes to get that piece around there. But when you're actually talking about what your purpose is and how everyone has a role to play within that, I think that's a really important message to add to it. So great stuff. The other side of it is, look, we've spoken a lot about the people side here and involving people. Treating people like humans is something which I think is a really important aspect. People are under increasing amounts of pressure in all aspects of everyday life at various different phases, and work has often contributed to that stress or that pressure within people. And I think the best companies really understand that and say, right, how do we create an environment here where people can thrive as themselves, where they can come in there and not just go to work, and this is part of the things we're talking about there, where they're doing something above just going in and clocking out and having to go to work. I love those environments where you can walk in and feel that everyone's there because they want to be there. So let's mix it up again and start in the middle with you, Claire. If you're there and you were to say, right, how can you create an environment where people are comfortable being themselves, where they love coming into work, where they are treated as humans, what does that look like in your business?
I think it's about creating, and it's not easy to do, but it's creating an environment where people feel safe to raise things. So they're not nervous that they're going to put their head above the parapet and then get shot down for something or ridiculed in a meeting because they've raised something or whatever. So it's creating that environment that is safe, where they can raise a question, they can query, they can challenge to somebody if they wanted to, and things like that. And that's got to be the core foundation, I think, that sits underneath it, that everyone feels safe, they feel that they're included, they're part of the process, they've got a role to play, as you say, and so everyone's got that participation in it. I think, when to build that, it takes trust, and trust goes both ways. So you've got to have the managers, the leaders, we've got to trust our staff, we've got to trust our teams, and they've got to trust in us as well, and it's building that up. And so if there are any difficulties, if there are any issues, nip them in the bud early, address them, don't fester them or not address something that's happened with an individual that was inappropriate, say. because they're the best star performer. Actually, you've got to address it for the good of the rest of the organisation. So it's being seen to act and treating everyone with that dignity and respect, and it comes, as I say, to that trust point.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying there. And whilst it's difficult to do, common sense and common practice is absolutely the right thing to play with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lily?
So people-centric policies and procedures definitely should be a priority for most of the companies. Just like we like to keep our clients in the center and work backwards, we should keep our people, our employees in the center and work backwards. I mean, again, on the granular level, what we do a lot of is hold lots of panel discussions within the workplace where we invite our C-suites. So, like, if we are celebrating a mental health day, then we will invite our C-suites and they will actually sit in the panel and talk about their hard times, their journeys through anxiety, depression, etc., and let people relate to that. Which then gives them that comfort that yes, if I need help, I need support, I can absolutely put my hand forward and nobody will look down upon me and they will absolutely be there to help and support. So leaders have to lead the way, and that's what we try and create in our workplace.
And finally,
yeah, I think trust, as you mentioned, is absolute key. And again, it comes back to how you, as a people leader, really lead. Yeah, because you can write down so many values if you like. You can talk about all this fancy stuff. You can have people-centric processes internally. If your leaders do not live it and not walk the talk, then it's just talk. Yeah, and people realize it very quickly. And then on the other side, again, as from my CEO perspective, yeah, making money, sometimes times are tough, yeah, and just being nice, it's not going to get the job done, yeah. So you have to find always the right balance of treating your employees not only as humans but as adults, as I said before, and setting the right priorities and getting that mix right. But all the time, make sure that there is trust between your team and your leaders, yeah. So they all feel they know the reason why they have to do the things they have to do, or they understand decisions why they have been taken. They know they have a voice. They know they are part of the journey. Yeah, and there is never a breakdown in trust. When there is a breakdown in trust by your team, it's basically the beginning of the end, at least of this particular part of the business.
I think it's really interesting that you said about being nice, and there's times within that. To me, there's the brilliant book Radical Candor, which talks about Netflix and how actually being straight with someone is the kindest thing to do. To be nice is to have that direct feedback, which makes you uncomfortable, but is absolutely the right thing to do for that individual to then move forward with their careers and their life. Sometimes we can sit there and try and be too nice on that and not have that conversation, and actually it becomes almost the not nice thing to do within that process as well. I knew this conversation would fly by, so I'm going to sort of start to wrap it up a little bit now, and let's go into some practical top tips within all of it. So if we're to sit there and say, look, people are out here, or we're looking to create a world-class workplace, a great culture for people to do, what would be some of the little pearls of wisdom that you'd be able to throw out there and say, this is something which you can take away into your business that's worked for ours? So let's go back to the old school here and start at the end and work backwards towards me again.
Yeah, I think everything has been said. But basically, in the beginning, it is about there is not one size fits all. Don't try to have standards and apply them to everyone. Yeah. It leads me to the second point, which is then if you want to treat people differently depending on what their individual requirements are, you have to have leaders that can invest in leadership. And I mean people leadership, not just managerial skills. Yeah. And third is, as I mentioned, retention is as important as attraction. Yeah. Make sure you understand, and you said it, career frameworks. What we have is we have a list of not to lose people at any circumstances, and we give them special treatment, special coverage, yeah, special executive attention to make sure we keep those people. Yeah. So great workplace is not only a place where you attract great talent, but where you retain great talent, where you treat them as adults, where you make them feel part of the overall journey. This is all textbook, I know, but it all comes back to having leaders that know how to do it. And if you have toxic leaders, this is one thing I've also learned is get rid of them immediately. No matter how important they are for the business, no matter how individual their customer relationships are, you might fear that you're going to lose a lot of business because this person has always delivered. But a toxic leader is a toxic leader, and he's going to destroy your organization. Get rid of him immediately, no matter how expensive it is. It's going to get more expensive if you keep him.
As I say, no, when you talk about expense, and we know what Germany's like on that on that front as well, don't we?
Let me not get there.
Claire.
Everything you've said, I think you've summed it up really, really well. It comes down, it's leadership. It's got to be leadership, and it's got to be, it starts at the top and it cascades down. You've got to set the example and set the tone. I think that's incredibly important to it. It's about giving people exciting work to do that they feel like they're developing, and it might not be all the tips and tools and the whizzy things, but actually they're doing something meaningful, they're doing something exciting, they're doing something that they enjoy doing. We spend so much more time at work than elsewhere and doing other things. We want to make the most of it and enjoy ourselves. So it's creating that environment where they're doing exciting work, but they also enjoy working with people that they're working with.
And finally, you get the last word.
Yeah, just sum it all up in 3 kind of bullet points. So number 1, I would say, build focus-driven culture, and everything that's already been said, like tell your people what they're working towards. They need the visibility, and more is less when it comes to communication. Number 2 would be invest in cutting-edge resources, because you need to make sure that you're investing in that. And finally, absolutely, it all comes down to the center, people-centric policies and procedures. Prioritize your people.
I think prioritizing people is so important. A drumbeat I always have is that you can have a weak product but a great team, and the team will make the product great. But if you've got a great product and a weak team, that product's never going to go anywhere. So this is why I think this is such an important part of it. And there's so much innovation and great talks that are happening all the way throughout here on every single hall. Some great businesses. But the thing that will drive any of these businesses, we've got a startup hub just next door with some great businesses and great ideas there. The ones that will thrive will be the ones that get this people conversation right and really work hard on getting that bit in there as well. So, guys, thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you, Toby.
It's been a wonderful conversation. Congratulations on everything you've done with your businesses. I know what they've done. We've listened to the stories, we've done the interviews, we've read the stuff in the magazine. You're doing a fantastic job, and thanks so much for each of you for being involved in here today and to coming over and sharing all the wisdom with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.